They invariably have an animistic religion. They invariably believe in the sea gods. They invariably believe in the sea gypsies. In fact, I find it very interesting that I have my Thai, who are Buddhist. I've got my Filipinos, who are staunchly Catholic. And I've got my Indonesians, who are Muslims. But they all have a second common religion,
Right.
which is the religion of the sea. They believe in the sea gods. They believe in the sea fairies. They believe in the sea spirits. And often they attribute their illnesses, decompression sickness and so on, to misfortunes in messing around with this second whole group of deities. It's quite interesting. And so there is this sort of parallel religion to do with the sea.
Right.
But they're gypsies. They're like gypsies you find in Britain. They're like gypsies you find anywhere else. They want to make a fast buck out of their environment. The Northern Asian peoples, whether they're Hong Kong, Japanese, Taiwanese particularly, Koreans, the eating of large live fish is a big status thing. Okay, if you're a rich man and you live well, you go out to the restaurant and you get big fish. And they're obsessed with big fish. I mean, my Japanese colleagues with whom I work in the pharmaceutical industry, they really are obsessed with fresh fish. And what better than to have the thing swimming around in an aquarium and say, "I'll have that one." And so that from death to serving is 5 minutes. That's fresh fish. So what happens is that the boats that come and collect these sort of say, "Well, these are the species we want," and the men go and cyanide the reef. You don't bomb for live fish.
Right. Cyanide.
No, if you go bombing for live fish, you get operculums hanging off, and you get broken pectoral fins. I mean, a fish that's been bombed is actually not that. It's pretty grotty. But if you want to catch fish and send them back to Hong Kong, you cyanide them. But you just anaesthetise them, and then you stick them in the open water pen, and then over the next few days the cyanide elutes out. They come from outside of Indonesian waters. They sail into Indonesian waters. They have mid-ocean rendezvous with, typically with other boats. There's often two boats in the chain. There's a big boat, and then there's the medium-sized boat. And the medium-sized boat is the local collector, and they go and get it, and then they take it back, and then they rendezvous in mid-ocean with this big vessel, and they do the transfers. And the thing which is, I think, particularly nasty is the way that if you go into an Indonesian village, you'll find a village which has only got a well. You'll find a village which has no electricity. And you will see the most superb US divers regulator and a Puma compressor. And no shop for miles around where it could be brought. So without doubt, those who are driving the trade from North Asia are also giving the men equipment. I mean, the average fishing village we've been into has a mortality of 4% per annum. It is a dangerous job. It's a very average, but we measure deaths in a few villages, and typically the average village seems to have about 110, 112 divers. And, 4 deaths a year is not way out.
It's totally insensitive, isn't it? Practically zonked.
Because don't forget that what kills these people usually is the lack of sensation in their legs. Because if you don't have sensation in your legs, you don't know when you're being bitten to death by insects. And what kills these people mostly is septicemia. This man has got crepitus in his leg.
He's got a bad back sore. He's got a severe sore at the bottom. He's terminal. He's going to die very shortly.
The island archipelago around the island of Knocknoken has more divers in it than the entire North Sea population at its peak. We think there are probably 60 to 80,000 of them, of which 1 in 5 will have spinal cord injury, 1 in 3 will have bone damage. This is the first time you see diving medicine in an epidemic proportions. What we've got to do is to get those native divers off the reefs. Oh, there are alternatives. It depends what your alternative is. BSE in the West, a sudden fear of gelatin products, has suddenly made people really love agar from seaweed. So suddenly, seaweed harvesting is becoming very viable. The rompongs are very interesting because, in effect, these are floating offshore artificial reefs. Okay, and they're in deep water, so they attract the big pelagics. You know, and these are high-value fish: tuna, bonito, the big, lovely fish. And what it means is that these guys can fish for them by conventional methods. I mean, what you do is you don't need to dive on a rompong. You just sort of take your boat out to it, and then moor alongside and throw your line over the side. And what you now have is guaranteed rich fishing. But the most important thing about a rompong is it's in deep water. Gets them off the reefs. This year, our priorities are 2. The one is we want to know how far east they go. And the first expedition this year, as you know, is Sorong eastwards. We're out to find out just how far they've penetrated. Secondly, we have to set up 2 laboratories, one in UP, one in the Thousand Islands, to start counting and categorizing these people so that we can begin a program of therapy. Even more important would be to change the attitudes of North Asia to its live fish.
Stop the demand.
Stop the demand. But I mean, come on, change the attitude of the whole of North Asia